But that deal getting done a couple of weeks ago, Shad Khan's been talking to everybody. He's got to be in as good a mood as we've seen him since he got here to Jacksonville. But one of the things that he keeps talking about, I saw it in his sit-down with Mike DeRocco and John Oehser here in the last week and a half or so, who've had the chance to talk to him. The theme I picked up on was the culture shift, right, in Jacksonville that Shad seems to be seeing. You know, I know he's put it as, it was nice to make the playoffs every now and then, you know, in his first 10 years here. Yep. You know, not a whole lot of success on the field, obviously, for the football team. But him talking about with where they've invested the money, with the way that they've built things up here, especially here in the last 2-3 years, that the expectation for him now, going in that we should be a playoff contender. We need to be in the playoffs every year. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And look, he's the owner. He doesn't have a whole lot to do with the football decisions that are being made. Since Shad has got here, I've seen him as the type of owner that goes, you need to spend what on who? Go. Yep. You know, that's been my feel on Shad Khan since he became the owner here in Jacksonville. But culture is one of those words, Tommy. Yep. And I'm probably guilty of oversimplifying it whenever we talk about it, because in my head, good culture is a winning culture, bad culture is a losing culture. And every time I say it, I also have that other side of my head that's going, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than that. Like, it has to be more in depth than that. You've been in these locker rooms. You've been a part of cultures here in the NFL. Yep. Is it as simple as good culture is a winning culture, bad culture is a losing culture at this level?
Well, yeah. I mean, because a bad culture means you've got cancers in that locker room, and it's going to blow up. You know, we saw that in 2017. Maybe cancer is a strong word, or after 2017. It all blew up. Everybody wanted their individual accolades and
no doubt
didn't care about the team as much, right? You got to care about the team, you know, number one. I'll tell you, look, first of all, Shad, I've been raving about him lately just because I love hearing that. He's, you know, look, it's natural to evolve. Everyone evolves. You have to think he evolves as an NFL owner. When he first got the team, maybe he was a little green. You know, he knew business, obviously. He's created a great business around it. The marketing is, you know, pretty close to genius. Even when they weren't winning, the values are going up. Everything. You got a good enough fan base, you know, solid each and every week. I think he's more hands-on. You know, you heard him talk about, hey, we got to develop draft picks. He never said that when he first got here. He didn't probably know what that even was, you know, to a certain degree. But I think, look, when your owner demands excellence, every time you see him, guess what he's thinking? Excellence. So that puts pressure on you, and that's a good pressure because every locker room needs that pressure from their owner. Hey, well, I mean, think about it. Let's look at it from a practical standpoint. You put out all that money. What are you expecting? You know what I mean? I'm expecting championships, fellas. I didn't give you all this money just so you can have it. I'm not just this open bank that doesn't want a return on his investment. I want a return, and you better bring me a return. And I like that kind of attitude coming from Shad Khan because it will. Look, it's top to bottom. Culture, top to bottom. What do I demand? Right? I demand – go back to the great Al Davis. Just win. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Just win. Find a way to win. That's what we do here in Raider Nation. We win. And they did. You know, it does matter. You know, I think for at least in the early days with Mr. Weaver, like, we had success early. So, you know, there was no demands. It was just –
it was a parade the first 5 years.
What a ride. This is awesome. And it was good to see him. We all did. It was great when the owner came into the locker room. It was great when you'd see him in the tunnels. It was great when you'd see him out at practice. You know, being a part of it, because that's part of the culture you're talking about. So, yeah, I do think a bad culture can tear you apart. A good culture doesn't necessarily win you championships, but it definitely helps get you to that spot.
What was right in 2022 that allowed that team to create momentum after getting beat as badly as they did in Detroit, right? They got embarrassed that week there with there was a lot of pressure on everybody going into that game. This is where you take, you know, we start the momentum right now. You know, we take it from Detroit, we grab it for ourselves. They got absolutely embarrassed that day. And then they went on the run at the end of that season. What was right about that team that year that was wrong in 2023 that allowed them to be 8-3 and competing for the 1 seed in the AFC at that point in time and lose 5 of their last 6 games and not even wind up in the playoffs.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, 2022, there were no expectations. No one thought they were going to do anything. And after that game, it even solidified it. Remember how mad I was after that game?
Oh, yeah.
I was so mad that they got killed that bad. Of course, because there's a lot of connectivity with Detroit and Jags and how they're doing and the way they're growing and that type of thing. I think, look, it happened in 2017. I just mentioned it, right? It can happen. How do you handle success? If you can't handle success, you're not going to be a very good team. So I don't think they handled it very well. I think they did get pie in the sky. I do think they got big heads. I do think they got fat and happy. And I think it showed. And look, we've talked about it throughout the year. You don't have a bad practice in week 2 against the champs. You don't need to get out of Dodge after week 3 because you're reading the press clippings.
Right.
The message should have been, you guys haven't done jack you know what yet. So what are you talking about, press clippings? You haven't done anything. You haven't arrived. You haven't done anything. And I don't think they handled it very well. And then, of course, everything else that happened last year, bad play or injuries or whatnot, and then that just spirals into you can't recover. So they didn't recover. How they didn't show up? Tell me, how did they not show up against Tennessee? How? Everything on the line.
It's a playoff
and you
game
don't
for
show
them.
up.
Yeah.
Come on, there's something wrong there. There's something seriously wrong inside that locker room when you don't show up for that game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's eerily similar to what they did to the Colts 2 years before that.
Yeah.
Right? In
right.
that final game that season where the Colts have everything on the line. Coming here to Jacksonville. Jacksonville is at the end of one of their most miserable seasons in franchise history.
Yep.
And they found a way to win that game and ruin the whole year for Carson Wentz and that Colts team that year. And Jacksonville was in that kind of position last year too. Tennessee had nothing to play for except to ruin it for you.
Right.
And it's not the first time Tennessee has ruined things.
No, you're right
for
about
the
that.
franchise here in Jacksonville.
Oh,
just when
the
it felt
dagger,
like that
I just
was
felt that
right.
spear going
just
on my
when
side.
It felt like it was really turning kind of the other way, especially with Week 18 the year before and how that went down.
Yep.
And everything that happened 2 years ago against the Titans, and then for it to end the way it did last year, I get it. From the fans that are going, are we ever going to get over this?
I'll tell you what, Tony. Look, when we were on the field for the Alumni Week, which was a San Fran week, and the Jags came out all fired up. They did. And then San Fran came out of the tunnel, and the whole mood changed. You could feel it. I don't know if it was being timid. I don't know what it was. But San Fran, from the opening bell, whooped their tail.
Yeah.
And you could see us go into a down. You're like, okay, I know they're San Fran. I know they're coming off a 3-game. I know they got stuck. But you you didn't show up for that game either.
Yeah.
Almost like you were afraid to go full speed. And you're going to get hurt. So there might have been some armor, dents in this team earlier than we think.
Well, and you got the full San Fran experience, right?
Yeah.
The guys that hadn't been there those 3 weeks when they were losing,
back.
They were all back.
That's right.
Right? And it did feel like, I get it from the 49ers perspective, walking on the field, it's like, we're us again. Right? Like they walked on the field with that kind of attitude, and they carried it through the whole game. Jacksonville had no answer for it that day.
They came to fight, and we did not.
No.
We did not.